Welcome back to Heart-Led Changemakers, the space where leadership returns to the body, the heart, and the truth beneath the surface. Today's guest is Wayne Barkus. He's a men's embodiment guide, somatic release and breathwork practitioner, and global facilitator with the Sacred Sons. Through his work and his powerful writing on Instagram, Wayne invites men into a deeper, more integrated masculinity, one that can hold both the shadow and light and power and tenderness. In this conversation, we're going to explore why emotional connection is strength, not weakness, how embodiment transforms the way men love and lead, the courage it takes to reclaim the inner throne and live from that truth, and how brotherhood and relational presence are the antidote to isolation in the modern masculine experience. So, this isn't just going to be a conversation for men, it's for anyone ready to see what leadership really looks like when it's rooted in the body, in integrity, and in the sacred. Wayne, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for the space that you've created. I'm excited to just share, my journey with your audience, with the prayer that just a little nugget may resonate and create just an entirely new timeline for somebody to move into.
I love that so much. Wayne, your writing is what drew me to you in the first place. I stumbled across you on Instagram, but your writing and your
Mm,
facilitation speak to the fierce nature in men, but also the tender nature within them. So, my
mm.
question to start off with is, what was the personal turning point for you that led you to this work?
Whew. It has been an incredible unfolding after unfolding of a journey, but what I didn't realize was that I was undergoing what I believe to be the initiatory process that every man gets to go through. And for me, that was with major confrontation with a divorce that happened in my life 10 years ago, which created just enough spaciousness and pause from a life that I was living that was moving way too quickly for me to finally look at the path that I had been on and where it had gotten me. And not only how I felt so empty and betrayed and sad and angry, but I also found myself just as a man confused as to how I was even supposed to show up. I thought I was doing everything textbook from what I had been taught, what I had learned, what I had witnessed others do, and it didn't work. And so it really spiraled me into what I found to be the hero's journey. And it's been incredible.
That turning point, I think we all go through that at different times of our lives, but there's one sort of epic tower moment, if you will, that everything starts to unravel but awaken at the same time. And for men in particular, that hero's journey is quite critical, isn't it? And some stay running away from that inner search and inner like deep dive, and others lean into it. I'm wondering from your perspective, what do you think it takes for men to surrender in that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, in my case and in what I see for a lot of men is it takes complete detonation of their current life. And it usually begins with a conflict of some magnitude, health issues, divorce, relationship issues, loss of life, something that creates so much tension that it's unavoidable. And, typically it's grief of some magnitude. If I were to point at the emotion, it's often grief that can really cripple and buckle a man and really kind of pull him into a space where he needs to really evaluate the direction where he's going, because you can't fake your way through grief. It's felt, people can see it. It usually pulls a man into a really low vibrational state where he doesn't have a lot of will to get up and go. And the dynamics between a lot of men is just they're creators. They love to get out there and do the thing and accomplish and check off all the tasks, and when they're not able to do it, it really creates a lot of turmoil. And it's a beautiful invitation into actually feeling the thing. And so that's usually the knock on the door, which is something shown up, and it usually is layers upon layers upon layers, for us to get to actually come home to.
Yes. And you can see globally, um, you can see people activating. You can see people going through challenging situations that are transforming them into these beautiful, sacred men. And I'm here for that. I love that. I love witnessing it,
Mm,
but there is still a lot of work to go because there are a lot of tools and resources that are keeping men and women hidden from the truth of who they are, and keeping them numb, keeping
yeah.
them suppressed, keeping them in that, in that running mode. And what I really love about the work that you're doing and the words that you use, and the way that you express that journey in all of its aspects, and even on this podcast too, you're really talking to just anchoring into that inner throne, that inner part of you that needs reclaiming. And I wanted
Mm,
to talk about how you facilitate these men to go through that space, because I think a lot of them are scared of what that looks like. They're scared things are going to get worse.
mm.
They're scared of the feelings. And so I'd really love for you to talk more
Mm.
to that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And just for some context, I'm a Midwest boy, born and raised in Chicago, been in construction for 30 plus years of my life. And so I'm, for on paper, I'm just a common guy. Like, I'm just a guy that got married young, went to college. I was an athlete doing the things. And so my story, what I learned is my story resonated with so many people. And it's what led me into men's work, was that there was what I found that was amazing in men's work is that when men start sharing their truth and start facing that which they've held forever, and they're held in a space of safety where they can be confronted by their truth, and even hearing another man's truth can just ripple into another man's body. And typically it's like a popcorn effect of tears, where when somebody shares about the abuse or whatever it was that this man has experienced, or the words that his father told him, or the gaslighting that his mother did, whatever the story is, there's so many men that resonate with it. And then all of a sudden, this competitiveness, the ego collapses, and it's like, oh wow, we're all together in on this, and how can we support each other through this? And it's really a beautiful, almost effortless process, that just the strength and creating the space where men come together and just have an invitation to be vulnerable. It's like it's on the tip of their tongue. They just haven't said it. And in many ways, for my own personal story, my dad was just not available emotionally for it. He's an incredibly beautiful man, and he just wasn't available to hold. Neither was my mom, to hold the intensity that came with my fears or my disappointment or my anger or my rejection. So for a majority of my life, I just shrunk myself. And I'm a big guy. Like, I take up a lot of space, and I found myself really shrinking my expression when I would come into a room. And when I shared this at my first men's group, it was like everybody felt the same way, that they were all like shrinking their expression. And so we got to really kind of like unpack the things that got us there. And what we realized, and what, I've really speak to, is that most men are, it's an outside in game where they're like constantly responding to life and what it throws at them, and they're checking off the boxes. But living from an inside out, there's a different sense of accomplishment and fortitude and inner knowing that happens when there's a resolve that we know how to soothe ourselves. We know how to show up for the intensity that's coursing through our body, and we know how to calm ourselves. So, I don't really go deeply into inner child dynamics when I speak on social media, because I really kind of want to meet men where they're at and kind of grab them with the essence of the possibility. But at the core of it, we get to, just as humans, show up for ourselves in a magnitude that we had hoped our parents would. And we get to learn how to find a new sense of resilience and trust, and ultimately a sovereignty, because I don't think it's something that could be taken away when it's forged from inside. That's the work that I've experienced in myself, and the work that I've witnessed in other men, just piece by piece. And sometimes it looks like a post-it note with an affirmation on their little truck dashboard, that anytime they have a negative thought, they just reframe it to a positive one. It just starts with one step, and then it just becomes this new way of it's like pulling this code out of our system and putting in a new code. It's really that simple.
Yes, I love that so much. And I love that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to think about it being so overwhelming. You can think about it being just one step, one surrender to the truth of what you're feeling. Just being in the acknowledgement is a really great first step. Being present with it, not even necessarily needing to fix it. And men, are very action orientated. So it's natural to want to just get it done and get it resolved. But there's a
Yeah.
reverence that comes with an important surrender that comes with facing these emotions. And that's where that beautiful feminine masculine dynamic comes in. We've all got the feminine and the masculine, but it is very much around allowing the two to come together, and the feminine holding the inner feminine holding that space for that surrender too.
Mhm.
It's imperative. Men have been, there's a lot of women out there who have who are actively talking about being on the receiving end of the disruptive, dysfunctional aspects of the patriarchy of masculinity. However, and
Mhm.
this is, a lot about what I talk about in my work. I work a lot with males, CEOs, but they
Mhm.
have been on the receiving end as well. Men have been on the receiving end as well. So
Mhm.
even though there are lots of men in power who are misusing their resources in all of the ways, and we're seeing that, in the chaos in the world at the moment, there are
Yeah.
men underneath that who are being treated as though that's them when it isn't. They too are in pain. They too want the
Yeah.
respite and the relief. And I think that's why your work really resonated so strongly with me, because you're helping them see you don't need
Mhm.
more of the things. You don't need more money. You don't need more power. You don't need more uh, material possessions. You don't need any of those things. You need more of you to come to the surface, more of your strength to come to the surface. And it's buried underneath these emotions. It's buried underneath this trauma. It's buried underneath this false ego that doesn't need to be there. And I hold retreats with male CEOs, so I take them through that process as
Mm.
well. But I'm so
Beautiful.
fascinated I'm so fascinated by men coming together. There is this beautiful
Mm,
essence and men helping other men that is ancient. It's like an ancient wisdom. And
mhm,
I feel like I'm like an alien in my space because I'm a female helping men predominantly. I haven't really come out to say it's only for men, but it is. And maybe I should, maybe I will now. But there
mm,
is that there is an aspect of women who are doing the work, who are healing, who are in um, absolute joy seeing men come together like that. There's just
mm.
really no words. You know, it is a miracle.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and it's felt. I mean, it's felt in my following, because what I'm noticing and recognizing, I attune to the world in many different spaces,
Mm,
and that's where the essence of what I share comes from. It's coming from my walk in the airport, my walk in the gym, kind of like reflection as to how the world's changing so quickly, and also where I see or hear different conversations where I'm like, oh, okay, it looks like there's a little cluster here that's popping, or there's a density over here where these guys are just like choking on their truth. They're like really caught deeply into the matrix. And oftentimes my posts are like cries, like prayers of,
yep,
oh, wow, I see the pain, and yet I get to live in the fullest expression of my truth, like full unfuckable with nature, and also be reverent and compassionate for other people's experience. It's just such a beautiful palette to live life in versus just this palette of grayness. And I do think that we're just about at the next swing of like a major awakening in men, because I've seen the kind of patterns and shifts, and then I see like the new ones coming. And I also see them kind of popcorning into social media, and I really think we are at an intersection right now. And that's why I speak from an urgency, because it's like time is moving quick. Decisions are being made in men's names while they're just going about their thing. And, we can't save anybody from the lessons that they need to have. I trust that everybody's exactly where they are. And I also trust that the more that speak up and speak out have the possibility to fill the algorithm with more invitations for these men that are awakening to see amongst all of the noise, because men's work has saved my life, and it's allowed me to show up for my daughters with a beautiful, loving presence, to be able to tap into a lot of art and joyous expression. And it was all of the things that I had no idea how to do. No idea how to access any of that. I didn't know how to be a better partner. I didn't know how to be a better friend because I didn't know how to listen. And it wasn't until I was in men's work where I had to truly like be with myself and recognize how much I wanted to get on to self-referencing about my story, and not actually listening and hearing and allowing this man that's in front of me, that's sharing something for the first time in his life, to be seen, heard, and felt in a magnitude that he might change his entire course of history, because he finally felt that he could be worthy of sharing his story and trust another man to actually listen and hold him in it.
yep.
It's revolutionary work. It really is.
And it feels that way when I connect with your work, when I see uh, those those groups being facilitated online, you're seeing clips of that. It feels that way, and
Yeah.
yeah, like I especially love that because I've had some guests that are facilitators of Sacred Sons as well, but all of you are doing these unique, very different, unique things in your expression. And that's what
Mm,
I'm excited about. I would love to see more men in their joy, in their passion, reveling
hmm
in the things that light them up, because with that becomes uh, an inner knowing and a stillness and a safety for the feminine, right? So then we can stop as
mm,
well. We're not worrying about our safety. We're not worrying about all of these things, and it's not a disconnect. But your words, your work, when you're sharing online, you're not just talking to men, you're talking to females as well, and you're talking to both, because it is a it is really easy just to talk to, even though your work is obviously predominantly for men, you're actually
hmm
helping women understand the nuances that happen for men as well. And then for
hmm
men, there you're helping them face and see the reality of the behavior that's creating chaos. And
hmm
it's just this, it's this, it's this container. Words can't describe it. You have to, though, they're like little spells, little prayers that you put in
hmm
there. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is the best. And so, for anyone listening, I highly recommend
mm,
that you read them, because they shift you on a cellular level. They really do. And
mm.
so,
Means a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. But why do you think, other than the way society has been built, is there something that stands out to you about why men are not allowing themselves to fully feel and express their emotions?
Fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just in the study of the collective, and, I study energy, and just in what I had to work through myself, we all have this ego that's based with a bunch of beliefs about who we are. The question that I asked as I was filing for divorce and my house was being sold, I had two little daughters, 1 and 4, and I could use the word I was losing it all, but all of it was temporary anyways. But at the moment, it felt like everything in my life that I had worked for, strived for, all of the hours of building this castle, it just vanished in front of me. And so the question that I got to ask was, who am I? And I didn't really have like a great answer. And a lot of men come to me and they're like, I'm lost, I'm hopeless, I'm depressed. I wake up, I do a 9 to 5, I get a couple minutes with my kids, and that's it. I'm like, well, what do you stand for? And they're like, because a man that doesn't stand for anything will fall for everything.
Yeah.
And that's the rub, that's the hook, that's the conditioning of, like, we're going to put men into a system, and we're going to keep them busy, and we're not going to have them have enough emotional availability to look around in the world, because their own world is going to be so intense that they're not going to attune to anything outside their perimeter of where they're at. And that's why I speak to what I speak to, because what I've understood in my journey is that the journey for men to access their emotional body opens them up to seeing the world completely different, because we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So if there's anger in there, naturally we're going to see angry people everywhere. Like, it's just going to be, our outer world is going to present all of the things for us to look at.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to work with men when men say what they're revealing that they see. I'm like, oh, okay, that's just the outer manifestation of your inner world showing it to you. If you can actually, like, take accountability and responsibility, that's in you somewhere hiding. Let's go there, let's feel it, let's give it words. In the facilitation process, a lot of guys have a stuckness in their neck, and I can almost see it. It's like, it's just this energy. It's like this darkness, and I'm like, give it words, and
Yeah.
and the words that come out, it's like, how long have you been holding on to that? And they're like,
Mm.
my entire life. Like, whoa, okay, now that that's gone, what do we have space to speak to? Possibility. Okay, cool. So the emotions are intense at first, but as we start to acclimate and trust and understand with all the tools and having been guided and confronted either by a man or a woman into those spaces, then we're not so afraid to let go of all this stuff. And ultimately, in the letting go and in the let me just let all of this stuff just exit my body, then we create so much space for other things to move through and fill us, and also synchronicities to happen,
Mm.
new timelines to shift. All this beauty starts entering into the space because we're not navigating the world still looking from the lens of all of our stuff. And so what I noticed in myself is that as I started to free all of this emotional bondage, I started to be able to look at what was happening in the world. And
Yeah.
I started to pay attention to every single detail, from skincare to my water to my health to my food, how I sourced it, where it came from. I paid attention to everything. I went down every conspiracy theory rabbit hole imaginable to men, because then I was able to understand the prison system and how to ultimately recognize that we're never in a cage. The cage is all self-imposed. And by doing that, men are then able to show up with more purpose and vitality, and like going on a quest of exploration with no destination. I don't, there's no long, most men are on a quest to like accomplish or get to the top of the mountain, but there's actually no mountain. Life is about the quest. And that's what's so juicy about it, is it just
Yeah.
keeps unraveling.
Yes, so true. And you just on that, when you were talking about going down all the rabbit holes with all the things, I noticed that you've got a clothing line as well. You've created clothes because you talk to the fact that there are
Mm.
chemicals in the clothing that you're wearing. Did that spark as a result of that deep dive?
Yeah, that's, I think one of the biggest gifts that came through for me, and I think, for most of the men that have entered into the Sacred Sons, something that happens as we men start to get to know ourselves a little more, and we start to like unravel the conditioning, and we start to pay attention more, and we start to travel more, and we start to look at how food is sourced, clothing is sourced. And for me in particular, I just kind of stepped into a new realm of expression,
Yeah.
like a really juicy realm of expression, where I started traveling. I'd go to Scotland with the Sacred Sons, and we go to these cool stores, and I'm like, I want to wear that. Like, I don't care what people think, because that's just amazing. And that's also part of my Scottish heritage. So what would it look like if I rocked a kilt, at one of these events? Like, I'm going to bring it through. And it just kind of just became like an unapologetic expression. And I think at least in Western culture, the clothing industry is just really whitewashed. It's just, you go into a store and you get what you get. And most men don't look at the tags. They're not looking at, where it's coming from. They're not looking at the energy that's going into it. And once I started really like pulling back the layers and looking at companies' mission statements, and I was like, oh, wow, I don't actually resonate with anything that's out there. So I was like, what would it look like for me to create something that was from my expression of what I think is missing? And I'd be fully transparent and actually educate men in the fabrics, the materials, the process, and do it all local, do it all made here, so that I can like go and pray for the ladies as they're weaving the threads. And so like, you know, I call it sovereignty woven in spirit, which is my brand is Sovereign One. And it's like every single uh, bit of energy and prayer and intention is it's felt in our fabric, and we're literally putting it over us all day. And so I just find that to be like a really fun expression for me. And I also think it's a big conversation. I think that post almost hit 1 million views, and I just kind of whimsically put it out there, and I'm like, oh, the world's ready for a bigger conversation. Let's talk about polyester. Let's talk about the agenda behind polyester. And clearly, I think people are waking up to a bigger conversation.
Yes. And I look forward to seeing some female, like your female line in there. Very excited for that.
Absolutely.
Yes. But
Yes.
I think people are not paying enough attention to uh, what it's so multi-pronged, because I think people are paying attention to their food now and how that's sourced, but I don't think they're thinking about their clothing. I think for those who've really deep dived, into things, they understand definitely. But I think for the maths still, they don't understand that a lot of their clothes are affecting their energetic equilibrium and emotional as well, not just physical, but those other two as well. And I think bringing that conversation to the forefront um, is is so needed now. And I think people have dismissed it in the past when they've heard about it. Like I remember, I think a couple of years ago, I was t telling my mum, clothing has a frequency. Fabric has frequency. She's like, oh, don't be ridiculous. She thinks that I'm like, really out there as a woo-woo, but I'm not. This is actually facts. Like you can read about it online. It's not hard. Everything has a frequency, and how it's made transmits into your auric field, into your physical feelings, and your organs, the way you digest things, all of that is being affected by the clothes that you wear. But when we're in a society that is very much here, have the next outfit and the next outfit and the next outfit and the next outfit. And I love fashion. Fashion is like one of my absolute favorite things. But it is for what purpose? Why are we collecting all of these things? And all of these things that don't even bring us any kind of benefit other than toxins. Like it looks good. It looks good, but is it? And that even talks to the way people are with their emotions. They look good on the outside. They look fit. They've got all the pretty things, the nice house, the cars, all the two kids, the dog, the glamorous wife or the glamorous husband, whatever it is. But what's underneath all of that? And a lot of the time, it is not good things. And that's why your work obviously resonates with me too, because we're talking to breaking past just what you're told. Like, do a little bit of research, think about things just that little bit deeper, and just being curious is a really great first step. And so I wanted to ask you, when it comes to a man's embodiment and when they shift, how does that show up in the way he communicates and how he shows up, like romantically and in their family dynamic? Like what changes there?
There's a tangible weight to his presence and his nervous system when it's entered into a stage of peace. And most men's nervous systems are hijacked. They're completely on fight or flight. And there's a sweet spot of rest and digest. And so when we speak of embodiment, for me, embodiment means to inhabit the body. And so most men live right here. They live in their head and in their thoughts, and they're disconnected from their actual body. And when they begin the journey of embodiment, for me, embodiment is mental, physical, and spiritual. And so it's three-pronged. It's how he handles his thoughts, what he does with them, how he is able to let the ones that he doesn't want pass by, and then create new thoughts. Like, if you don't like the thought, just let it go. Don't ride that train. And in his physical, how he tends to his physical daily, and what he does for his body in order for it to be in a peaceful state. Now, look, a 9 to 5 in traffic, there's going to be, there's going to be some static. Now, a simple like pull up for me prior to going to pick up my daughters, I would pull over and I would give myself 3 minutes to do some breath work. And it took me from static into calm. Now, not so much just how I was able to show up for my children then, but also how I felt and how I was able to react to my children's intensity. And so the journey of embodiment is really an opportunity and an invitation for more life, more chaos, more conversation, and just being the calm in the middle of the storm, because we've cultivated a nervous system that's expanded for intensity. And also we can then create boundaries when we feel that our nervous system is not calibrated right. And so the true journey for masculine embodiment is really creating boundaries with all of the things, including the addictions, including the phones, and creating a new ritual of how he shows up for himself to tend to himself. And if we're going to just insert the feminine aspect, it's the aspect of nurture. And it's the act, it's anything that he puts in his hand that goes into his mouth is soothing, or whatever's in his hand that he's looking at that he's soothing. It's for him to be able to show up in a new way to soothe himself, so that when he shows up, he can be so present and so curious, and he can listen to a magnitude where it can all land in his body, and he can be there, and his partner, his children are like, whoa. it's tough to put into words, but after retreats and the men go home and like their heart's open and their auric field is open, there's like a receptivity and a joy and a playfulness that is magnetic. And also his ability to create boundaries in, like, oh, like this call's coming, that's okay. I don't need to answer it. I want to be here with you. Like, you are all that matters right now. And so, you ask the question of how does the family or how does the partner, well, they can feel him. And likely it's the first time they might be able to feel him for an extended period of time ever. Like truly deep presence where it's like, oh, this man feels peaceful. Like he has nowhere to go. Because when I'm in a room with somebody, I love to like just deepen in a couple notches to let them feel so seen and heard. Like, oh, wow, that was different. I like, because then it becomes an invitation for them to show up to their next relationship or encounter with just a little more presence.
Yes, exactly.
That's the gift.
Because once you felt it, then you're able to do that for other people as well. You know what it feels like. So you can set that as an intention. And that's such a beautiful gift. And again, why I love that work. I especially love that you were talking about just taking a few minutes just to be still with whatever is coming up, the frustration about driving in traffic, the worry that you're not going to get there on time, the overwhelm of having so much work to do. And this applies to men and women both, because everyone's busy and everyone's got 100 things that they want to get through, so that they don't feel what we we love to put on ourselves guilt and shame at the end of the day for not being perfect and accomplishing 700 tasks. But
Sure.
but the important things are being being still with the people around you. And I
Mhm.
think that is in all of the aspects. It's especially with your family unit, but it is with the people that
Mhm.
you interact with at the local supermarket, at your in your work, on the phone, like being present, not distracting yourself, because that's what feels easier, but actually just letting someone know that you are there present with them. And it is, um, it takes a little bit of practice when you haven't done it, but I think it is helpful for you because then you start to surrender more into your shadow and light aspects, like the you start to see where you're just phoning it in. You're not
Mm.
deep in the intention. Even with these
Yeah.
podcasts, this is a really great example. If I'm not anchored and centered in, I can easily
Mm.
fake my way through it. There's no problems with that. I could easily do that because I'm a chatterbox, but
Sure.
that doesn't feel
Sure.
good. Doesn't feel good for me. Doesn't feel
Right.
good for my guests. Doesn't feel good for the people who are
Right.
listening, right? And there's a
Yeah.
difference, and you can feel it. So I think
Yeah.
this is a really good invitation for all of our listeners and the people who come across this podcast to just pause and just consider, like,
Yeah.
why are you pushing yourself to avoid those feelings? Just sit with it for even just 30 seconds. Even it doesn't even have to be 3 minutes,
Mhm.
30 seconds, and just go, yeah, actually that feels it. I feel a bit not right. My stomach feels like it's in knots. My chest feels like it's getting
Yeah.
tighter. I'm getting a bit antsy. I'm getting flushed in the face. It's like, okay, well, what
Yeah.
do I need? And even just that question, what do I need right now? Do I need to roar? And with men, they've got that beautiful, like, fire, like, expression, like, in the car, turn up the music, roar if you want to, like, do it, get it out,
Yeah.
just like move it, do whatever you need to.
Yes.
Or it might even just be asking
Yes.
the inner child, like, what do you need? I ask my inner
Yeah.
child all the time. She's been through a lot, poor love, but I ask her, she's
Mhm.
part of the conversation. She's got a seat at the table wherever I go. I don't just ignore her. She's not running the show,
Yeah.
but she's a consideration.
Yeah.
And um,
Yeah.
imagine if we were all pausing in that way before we were taking any action, how different
Mm.
that would be. And so with your work,
Yeah.
it is so deeply ingrained, the shadow and the light. Like you talk about this so much and why it's
Mhm.
important. But when you think about leadership, like
Mhm.
how do you see that as it is now, and what do you see for what is going to come?
Mm. Phew. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, leadership has been inverted completely in that, it's power, it's competition, and it's withholding of the truth, or it's outsourcing power ultimately in what I see if I'm going to look at the macro. And what I believe to be the next level of leadership is sovereignty, inclusion, dropping the competition, and coming together. And I've read about this in the Gene Keys. I've talked about this with so many other men across the globe, and it's really like, how can we work together to create solutions? Because we're not going to be able to do this on our own. Like, there's no need to do this on our own. When we come together, our voices can amplify, and we can just get more done together. Versus the framework right now that I see, especially in the tech world, where it's just like every man's for himself trying to conquer to get to the next rung of the ladder. Yeah, I think, you know, it's a perpetual hamster wheel, and it doesn't lead to fulfillment. And I think leadership is clarity. And I think it's clarity of direction, it's clarity of action, it's the proposed outcome needs to infuse peace. Because I think all that we're seeing right now is division. I mean, look, there is a war that's going on in the spiritual, there's a war that's going on in the physical, and none of it involves peace.
Yep.
All of it involves confusion and chaos. And so the next iteration of leadership is to bring through clarity, laser sharp clarity.
And it's what I'm, attempting to bring through into the space, is to be as clear as I can about the costs of abandoning oneself, and not to save men from the dark night of the soul, because it's all coming for us at some point. But with just a little bit more awareness and effort, we can come together and really start to solve some big problems together as we come together. So it's really like going from the egocentric consciousness of division to unity consciousness of, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Like, let's all speak in harmony and come together to create solutions for these really big problems that are speeding up.
Yes, so true, so true. It is that coming together is especially important and really leads me to my next question, which I'm sure the women listening to this are not going to enjoy, but that's okay. We're going to get uncomfortable with it. I feel like at the moment, women, there are a lot of women who have been doing the internal work. We've been in that space for a while. And I
Mhm.
have noticed that it is, and I've probably been at that point at some stage where it's like over to men now. It's like now you do the work because we've done enough, right? But that is not working together. That is not fulfilling what we're meant to do.
Mhm.
We're meant to help each other. So my question is, how can partners support the men in their lives on this journey without trying to fix them? Because you've talked about the dark night of the soul and not being in save mode, which is essential. But as a partner, that can be a little bit challenging to do when you're seeing your person flailing and sad and grieving and chaos creating. So, how would you recommend they step in to support them?
Yeah. This question comes through so many times, and just to reflect back to you, yeah, I feel it. I feel that women have done an insane amount of work. And let me just mention too that women are gifted with cycles. Like, you're attuned to your own body in a way that men aren't. And I think the biggest disconnect that men have, it's when I speak of the spiritual aspect, is being disconnected from the cycles, being disconnected from the actual cosmos, from the planets, from the moon, from the ground, from the grass, from all the healing that the earth gives us. Women are much more attuned to that. And so I think women naturally have like a one up in their amazing emotional attunement, and men have a long ways to go. They're catching up, and women are losing patience. A lot of women have given up, and I understand, and I feel the desperation and the exhaustion. I've posted to it. I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of comments about the exhaustion of the weight of carrying a man that's a shell. And I know it because I was one. And
Yeah.
so I witnessed it firsthand. I lived it. I was a shell. And so my simple answer is to become the invitation. And I say that because I lived it. Um, in my relationship that I'm now in, my partner was pretty exhausted. I was binge drinking. I was sneaking cocaine, and my nervous system was a red alarm fire. It was really, really pretty challenging to witness. And she decided she was going to hire a coach, and she was going to get a spiritual coach to kind of guide her into some softness and teach her about the way of the rose. And she created a little meditation practice, and put it off in the corner of the room. And she started going outside and cutting roses every day. And she ordered an adorable table, and she had a vase, and she had this beautiful space. And what happened after that was the most beautiful thing that's happened in my life, is I got to see her soften. I got to see her show up for herself in a way that was breaking a generational curse. because she was allowing peace into her life. She was a stance for peace with or without me. She was showing up for herself, and she put a boundary up. She's like, don't go in that corner. Don't touch my stuff. If you want to smell my flower, ask me. Like, she really created some parameters around that room. And for the first time in my life, I was watching my partner create some beauty and also creating like the boundaries around it. It was a really interesting feeling for me to witness. This was just about 7 years ago. And I started to watch her change. I saw her go from overly reactive to listening. And she was curious. She was asking me questions, and the questions were confronting. Many of my posts are in reference to the mirror, because the questions that you were asking, as she got sober and I continued drinking, she then asked me, why do you drink? And it was like, I'm 39 years old and nobody asked me why I drank. I just drank. I never actually looked at myself and said, should I have outgrown this? Should I still be doing this? Is this serving me? Should I be taking 4 Advil in the morning? Like, what is it? So like all of these questions, it was like the mirror got held up. And then one day, I came home and I was kind of having like a little baby panic attack. And she's just like, like, are you open to meditation? And I said, tell me about it. Like, what does that mean? And she said, it's just going in the room, lighting a candle and breathing through your nose. And she took me through a little box breathing thing. And I did it. And because I was fed up, and I felt the difference in her. I felt the softness. I just felt her like letting go of me and doing her in a magnitude that was like inviting. And so her becoming the invitation actually led me into the meditation room. And that particular meditation, I cried for like 2 hours, because I think it was the first time I actually gave my body the space to slow down and actually feel. And her softness allowed me to be soft, because I wasn't like defensive of it. I was like, oh, can I share with you? I just cried. I don't even know what happened. And that inspired my entire path.
Yeah.
Everything that I've done since then was invited by her doing her best version of me, and no more pressure. She was ready to go. Let me preface that. She had like 1.5 feet out the door, but she still believed and she still had faith. And that's not to say like, if there's abuse, go. Like, if there's abuse, you got to go. Right? Like, no more excuses of maybe he can change. Like, I want to, I get a lot of messages where like I hear this behavior and I'm just like, no, that's abuse. And that needs like a lot of work that he needs to do on his own. And you need to go and you need to tend to yourself. But in this particular dynamic, I was just more disconnected, and she just showed up for her. So, I think the power and the beauty of a woman that's showing up for herself to the magnitude that's kind of like, I'm doing me, go ahead and do whatever you want. And I'm going to pull away and pull away and pull away and pull away. And I'm just going to rise my frequency so high that the question of should I stay or should I go, it's moot. It doesn't even matter. They already know. Their intuition's telling them. They've seen all the signs. He hasn't answered the call, the call of the initiation, the call of the descent, the call of his heart. It will never be shaken out of a man. He either has it or he does it. And I'll say this too. In a lot of ways, women need to leave the man and then the call comes, because that is the actual like letting go of the enabling. Like, I'll stick around because of your potential. But when a man actually has to like sit in that, oh, now she's gone, that's usually when he actually does the work. And it's kind of painful, because it's like, oh, you could have just done that when I was around. But that wasn't the journey. Like, sometimes we're just in relationship to spark the others to go on their path, and we got what we got, and now we're in a higher vibration to attract our next partner.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yes. And then there are, like you said, plenty of women who are doing that work and who are creating space for that invitation. And that's beautiful. And I love what you said. Like sometimes, you have to make those hard decisions about whether to stay or leave and what that looks like. But I think that you need to trust yourself in making that call. But there is another aspect that I've noticed where there are men who are wanting to deepen, but in their family
Mm-hmm.
unit, their partner is not one of those women that we've just described. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like in reverse. And so
Mm.
they go and participate in these, you know, group
Events.
events, or they come to my
Yeah.
retreats, or we work one-on-one, but then at home that is not the space that
Mm.
they have. And that is a hard thing to face as well, because when you've got children, when you've got property and homes and all these things that are you're interwoven and have been together for a long time, and a lot of people have been in relationships from their teens and so forth. That's
Mm-hmm.
extremely complex. And so what would
Mm-hmm.
your advice be to men looking at things from that dynamic?
Yes, it's a beautiful question. And for me, it comes down to my practice, which I have a morning practice that I do every day. An embodiment practice, it's a blend of masculine and feminine. So I'm doing breath work, I'm doing some kundalini, I'm doing movement,
Mhm.
and I also journal. And so, like, I find it to be incredibly powerful for men to have a practice of their own. But I also find that every relationship can benefit from partner practices. And these are just practices for us to come together and to like kind of agree on things that feel good for us. My partner's not going to do breath of fire. Men have different energy. I love breath of fire, but she is into, and she's always receptive if I invite her into just doing some long, deep belly breaths. So there's a give and take of like, hey, are you up for, doing a little bit of breath work together? Or would you like to go put your feet in the grass with me? Look, I could give you all the data, reducing inflammation stuff, but like, are you open to like connecting to nature with me? And so again, it comes back to the invitation. I think if a man's showing up and he's showing up for himself and she can feel the difference, and he's not forcing her or nagging her or shaming her for how she's showing up, and he gently invites her in, I can tell when my partner's out of whack. I can tell when she's unbalanced. I can tell what she needs. And I'll invite her into my practice. Sometimes she'll say yes, and sometimes she'll just reject me. And I don't make it about me, but I certainly, like I'm going to bring the dynamic. Now, look, if she's going to continue to say no over and over and over again, and she's not showing up and she's not taking care of herself, if she's not tending to herself, if she's in full reactivity, that's when I'm going to pull her over to the couch, and we're going to sit there, and I'm just gonna, gently apply some touch. Typically, I'll put my hand on her heart and just like look at her and just be like, hey, there's something that I'd like to share with you that I've been noticing, and I'm just feeling like a disconnect. And what I would really love is that if we could work on connecting, and if there's anything that's going on that you want to share with me for how I can show up to support you in this, let me know, because I've got the capacity, I've got the range. If you need me to cover the this and the this and the that to create some more space for you to show up for yourself that way, I'm here for it. Or if you'd like to join me, but it's all about bringing the elephant into the room.
Yeah.
And it's in the technique of how you bring the elephant into the room, and when we speak of embodiment, men that are out of embodiment, bringing the elephant into the room, they're no one to lead their partner into that space if they're not doing it themselves.
Yes, and it is disruptive. Like, let's, call a spade a spade. When the partner that you've known has been operating the same way for 20 years and then decides, the universe decides it's time for their awakening and they completely
Yeah,
transform into someone else, it is frightening because then you have to get out
totally.
of you get to make a choice. And this goes both ways. You get to make a choice
Yeah,
of whether you join them on that journey or you don't. And
yeah,
it is not everyone chooses to continue and continue to grow as well, and that's sad. It's very sad, but that I just wanted to add that into our conversation because um, it isn't just men who are dragging their feet. Sometimes it is the feminine. Sometimes it is the female, the wife who is already too busy with the kids, who enjoys hiding in the egoic activities, in the way everything looks rather than the way that it feels. They don't want to feel anything. It means disrupting a lot of aspects in their lives, and it's not nice. So thank you for sharing your approach to that side of things. And again, hopefully that's a consideration for the people who are listening too, because I think we've all been there where you kind of, it feels like you're outgrowing someone else, but it doesn't always mean throwing the relationship in the bin. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's actually just about reframing your approach, your conversation, your way of how you're inviting, that's the word that you were using, inviting people in to do that transformation too. So thank you. And
yes.
my last question, I could keep talking to you for hours and hours, but my very last question for today is for any and every man listening who you could, send a message to and a prayer to, what embodied action could they take towards their truth? Like, what would you most want them to do?
It's a great question. But the thing that comes to me is take the leap. My favorite quote is by Rumi, as you walk, the way appears. And what I recognize with men is like most of them are right on the cliff. They're like right there. And this journey is like the journey of 1,000 miles. And it just keeps going and going and going. But it's epic. It's beautiful. It's colorful. It's rich. It's a story that creates legacy. And it's like, when I think about it, it's like, what is the song that my children are going to sing about me? What is the song that my brothers are going to sing about me? What is the song that my family's going to sing about me? Like that dash in between 1978 until the time that I exit this life, like that's our story. And so my invitation for men is to write a new story, because most men are living the story that somebody else was written for them. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And it's not it. There's a story that's so epic. It's so wild. It will be book worthy. It will be what legends are made of, but it just takes that first step, and the discomfort dissipates into this amazing, comfortable stretch of living life with your lips pressed to your fears, where you're like, oh, wow, I can really do anything. I can accomplish, I can say anything, I can create anything, I can be anything, all because I decided to write a story that was bigger than the story that I believed about myself. So for me, it's take the first step. And most men have that call on their heart. They know what it is. It's usually reaching out to a mentor, a coach, signing up for breath work, getting sober, quitting porn, stopping fast food. They know it. That phone's always ringing. Most men are really attuned to like 2 or 3 things, but you just got to pick one.
I love that so much. Wayne, it has been an absolute joy talking to you. I knew that it would. Selfishly, I just wanted to chat to you. But I am so in awe of the work that you're doing and the way that you are expressing in a deeply powerful and energetic way with the world, and you're helping both sides understand how to communicate, how to deepen, how to connect, and how to come back to themselves. And it is an absolute joy to watch. So thank you again for joining me
Thank
today.
you. Yeah, thank you. I call it my Instagram voice. And I think, I think we're all learning to use and utilize our voice in different ways to pierce out there through all of the noise. And so I'm grateful it was felt as I continue to learn how to be in social media and share from a story and like kind of grip people and get people to feel again. How do we get people to feel in a virtual space that's dopamine ridden? Like, and so I'm still working on it. I'm still playing with it, and I'm grateful that you're feeling it.
Yeah, well, it stops me in my tracks. Like immediately pause. And whilst I am very intuitive, that's probably helpful. I
Mm,
feel like there is so
sure.
much strength in and power and
Mm,
energetic force in each of your posts, and it is noticeable. And
mm,
as I said earlier, like, I encourage all of our listeners to connect with you on Instagram. I'll put the link to your bio so they can check out your work and your website as well, so they can check
great.
out the
Thank you.
clothing line and all of the other stuff that you're doing
Yeah.
there. But it is, yeah, it's been so good speaking to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my pleasure. Yes.